Hello and welcome to Huntington Stadium, and we're back once again to put our local rugby league club under the microscope with edition 5 of Inside the Knights. Since our last programme, the Knights have won 3 and lost 1 of the past 4 games, the defeat coming on Sunday away at Workington. No disgrace considering the Cumbrian side have been unbeaten at home for the past 13 months. As the lads prepare for another crucial game, this time at home on Sunday against Keighley Cougars, we're going to give them a bit of a rest from the spotlight and look at some of the other activities going on at the club. In the first half of the programme, we're going to take a look at the work of the Knights Development and Scholarship Scheme. And the other day, I went to the Knights office to speak to the North Yorkshire Development Officer, Ian Wilson. Ian Wilson joined the Knights as North Yorkshire Development Officer in October 2004, as the club looks to expand its sphere of influence and continue its community work right across the county of North Yorkshire. Working alongside Jason Ramshaw, Ian has a challenging job, but one which he's thrown himself into, and the successful results so far speak for themselves. So Ian, you've been here for 8 months. How have you found the job since you took up the post?
I absolutely loved it. I couldn't really ask for a better job, to be honest, working in rugby league primarily, but with the kids in the school. It's a dream job really for me.
And has the club been as you expected?
Yeah, it's excellent, really well run organisation, both on off the field. Results going well at the moment, apart from on Sunday, had a bit of a slip up, but hopefully we can keep it going. Had a good half of the season, the second half equally as good.
So Jason Ramshaw, who you work alongside, is the development officer, and you're the North Yorkshire Development Officer. So for people that don't know, what does your job entail?
Well, obviously Jason's job is primarily in York based, so my job really is just to extend all the good work that Jason's done into other areas of North Yorkshire, such as Selby and Scarborough. They're 2 big areas. We're doing a little bit of work in Tadcaster, just kind of extending the current work that's been done to other areas of the county really.
How challenging is that?
It's pretty challenging. In York, we've kind of got a bit of a feel-good factor at the moment. There's a lot of people who are interested in taking part in rugby. A lot of people want to help administrate and coach rugby. In the other areas, such as Selby and Scarborough in particular, it's not as sort of like common, so to say. So it's a little bit harder, but the schools and people we've worked with have generally taken it on board, and we have had some very successful competitions and events and activities in Selby and Scarborough this year.
You mainly work with kids and with schools. What, on a practical level, do you actually have to do day to day?
Well, the day-to-day things, organising that coaching delivery, when we're going to do it, planning when the festival's going to take place, and working back how long have we got to go around the schools, how many schools can we have involved in the tournament based on the time we've got to do it. There is a lot of sort of like phone calls, emails that shoot around between myself and other people, mainly teachers, but that's sort of the day-to-day stuff that I do, obviously planning for tournaments and festivals really.
So why do you think it is that the York City Knights seem to be ahead of a lot of their kind of teams at the same level in this kind of community aspect?
I just think they've put a lot of effort, time and money into the schemes, and a lot of other clubs see it as just rugby, and all their money and efforts going to winning on the field and getting up into the higher divisions. But we see it a little bit. We look outside the box really, look a little bit more, and look, if we extend the base at the bottom of the pyramid, then eventually we're going to get more better players coming through at the top level. So it's a process that'll take, maybe we might not see the benefits for 4 or 5 years, but it's something that we're working towards, and we think it'll be beneficial for the team and the city in years to come really.
One of the most successful things has been the York Primary Schools Tag Rugby Festival, which again took place this year. It seems to be bigger than ever. Were the community staff pleased with the way it went?
We're absolutely delighted, yeah. 50 schools, which I think there was only 4 or 5 in the city who didn't take part, which I would imagine, seeing the success of it this year, will be delighted to get involved next year. Yeah, a lot of hard work went into it, but it's a lot of enjoyable work as well. It's not, I don't mind doing it when you can just go into the schools and work with the kids and see everyone having a good time. But it's not only in York when we've had the success this year. We've also had 21 schools in a Selby tag tournament, which is the first year it's been run, which I think there's only about 3 or 4 schools didn't take part in Selby. We also had one in Scarborough involving 10 schools, so it's starting to spread out as well outside of York now, which is going to be beneficial for the club and North Yorkshire in particular in the next few years.
Thinking about the family fun day against Hunslet, a narrow victory, what a crowd, over 3,200 people. Now, a lot of fans have turned up on the day and a lot of kids came along with free tickets, but for those people that might not know what happened in the background, how much work went in to get all those kids down there?
Well, I would say that the work started probably February time, maybe even before that, January, Christmas time, when we started to go and do the schools coaching, because it's all about awareness really. If people are aware of the club and about the team, then they're not going to turn up if you just go and take them a ticket and they don't know what it is. So we did sort of like 2-3 months coaching all the kids there who took part, probably involved in the tag festival, so they've had a bit of enjoyment, they know what it's about. And then on top of that we did 3-4 weeks of assemblies, which we did assemblies in just about all the schools in York, just to promote the Family Fun Day, say what was going to be happening. It's a couple of an individual prize and a team prize. I mean, Derwent School won a full sports kit for having a large percentage there, so it's not just a case of sending tickets out, which a lot of people think there is a lot of hard work and time that goes into it.
Because I've heard some clubs say that they give out free tickets and nobody turns up.
Yeah, well, you're never going to get there if you just send a ticket out. Then it's never going to work. You've got to push it. You've got to make people aware of what's going on, and especially when we're doing well on the field as well, it makes it a little bit easier. I think if we're at the bottom of the league, it'd be quite hard, but we've just been top of the league, as I said before. There's a feel-good factor. I think that helps to bring people in really.
So part of your job here seems to be a bit of marketing.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, there's a lot of marketing in the club, and John likes to think that as well. Get more people into the ground. If we can improve our crowds, but also improve the standard of rugby across the city and the participation levels, then it's all well and good, really.
So also one of the things in the community scheme is the North Yorkshire service area which you run, and from that area we then choose people for the scholarship scheme if they're talented. How good are those players this time around, and how have the results been?
Well, it's a good time to ask that question actually. We've just received the notice from the RFL about how many players we've got on Yorkshire Regional Camp at 3 age groups, under 13s, 14s and 15s, and we've actually got 14 lads who have been selected to go to Yorkshire Camp, which is the biggest number we've ever had from North Yorkshire. So that just says what sort of ability we've got at the moment. We've had a pretty good service area season. We've won some, lost some, but it's not really about the winning at the service area. It's about performing and identifying the talent, and 14 lads is pretty good to have on regional camp, I think, from North Yorkshire. When you think there's 8 service areas in Yorkshire, that's pretty good, I think.
And finally, how proud would the staff here be to see some of those lads coming out of the tunnel at Huntington Stadium and playing for the Knights? I'm
just looking forward to the day when we see that the first kid who's come through, right from maybe the tag, right through the service area scholarship, do maybe an academy team if we get one set up in the future, and into the first team. It'd just be a great day for the development. It means that our job is worthwhile, really.
Well, best of luck in that, and keep up the good work. Thanks for speaking to us.
No problem, thanks very much.
Next on the programme, I'm going to speak to a guy who is a well-known Knights supporter, but this season is part of the management team of the Knights Scholarship Scheme, Phil Seymour. A well-known Knights supporter along with his family, Phil Seymour has taken up the role this season as one of 2 managers of the Knights Scholarship Scheme, a programme launched late last season in order to select and harness talented young players and turn them into Knights stars of the future. It's hoped that this scheme, which is one of the only ones run outside Super League, will set the benchmark for the way a local club should be working with the community in order to provide important opportunities for local kids. So Phil, let's start off. Could you tell us about your new role with the Knights Scholarship Scheme?
Right, basically the start of the scholarship year, which was getting off 10 months ago now, Jason Ramshawny and Wilson said they were going to set up the scholarship along with Steve Ferris at the time. I was asked if I'd fancy getting involved, which, to be honest, I did. One of the reasons I got involved with the club to start with was for the kids' side of it. You know, I like to see the kids of York got things to do, and I've got one of my own, so he's hopefully going to come up himself. So yeah, I was asked by, as I say, Steve, Jason, and Ian if I'd get involved, and I wholeheartedly agreed.
So you're one of 2 scholarship managers. What does that job entail?
That's right, there's myself and Kev Pratt. Basically, our job is to do the admin side of it as much as anything, make sure the lads that are attending, we sign off all the paperwork that's got to be done, because there is some work behind the scenes for the lads to do. It's not purely rugby. We check references from their schools, from their teachers, from their club coaches. whether they're at Heworth, New Ayswick, Acorn, Selby, wherever. That side of it, we also attend the coaching sessions and just generally make sure the lads are generally happy as well as happy in their rugby. We try and bring them on mentally as much as anything as well. It's based around the whole theory that we're coaching a whole rugby player as opposed to just someone to play rugby. We're trying to get them more lively, more confidence generally off the pitch as well as on it.
Now, you've got a full-time job, and as you just described, you've got a lot to do there. So why do you decide to take the job on?
It's something I enjoy. It's good working with kids. Dave Blacker and Dave Edgar, who are the two coaches on the scholarship, are both very, very good coaches. They're very knowledgeable. They know the game inside out. So it's a pleasure to work with them. I'm learning things from it as well as anything else. Plus, I enjoy it. It's nice to see that the building blocks are there for the future of the club. And if I can help out in that, then I'm more than happy to.
For those fans that don't know about the scholarship scheme, what age groups are we talking about?
We've got under 13s, under 14s. That's being added to shortly, I believe. Which hopefully, I believe we're going to have 4 different year groups. So once that's up and running, that'll extend it further, and then extend it on from there really until eventually, in a long way in the future, we'll have a full scholarship and academy, which will hopefully feed the club players as we go.
A lot of older people say that kids are ill-disciplined, ill-mannered. What's your experience working with the kids?
Not the ones we've got. To be fair, the lads that are chosen to come onto the scholarship are not just chosen for rugby ability. Over the years, there's been some, mercurial talents on the rugby pitch. Same as any sport, football, cricket, and the fall down has often been that they've not got it away from the pitch. There's other problems. Really, we're trying to get lads that are the whole package, and if they're not, we're trying to make them that. So that's the aim anyway. Whether it comes off or not remains to be seen, but it's looking good so far.
Generally, do you think rugby league as a sport is difficult to sell to kids and to their parent?
I don't think it is in York at the moment. I think what's happened with the Knights, it's made fantastic strides. There's more rugby league been played in schools than there has for years. It's taking over really with the success on and off the pitch of the Knights, the development work that's being done by Jason and Ian in the schools and in the community. It's actually become very, very easy because there's a lot more kids getting involved in rugby league at local level, at amateur level, and it's good. The whole game in York has really picked up in the last couple of years.
It'd be great to see some of the lads obviously coming through and playing for the Knights in the future, but to play devil's advocate, if they're really, really good, surely when they just get poached by a bigger club?
They're only 13, 14 now, so hopefully by then we'll be a bigger club. So, you look at what York has produced over the years. I mean, Gareth Ellis is currently the hottest property in rugby league, in this country anyway. Gareth Ellis played in the York Wasps Academy. So what's to say that the lads we've got now aren't the future Gareth Ellises? And if they are, we certainly want them playing for the Knights.
Kids of the future. The Knights have did brilliantly with this Family Fun Day, got a lot of kids in here. Why do you think the Knights can do that, perhaps where other professional sports clubs in this area fail?
I think they put a lot more time and effort into it. The work done behind the scenes is phenomenal. People don't really see it. They see the success of the Family Fun Day and they say, oh yeah, they gave a load of tickets to schools and all this. They don't see that they don't just send these tickets to the schools. We've got Jason, Ian, the other community coaches that go into these schools. They spend time with the kids, coaching them rugby, showing them how the game works, and teaching them the core skills, the basic skills of ball handling, running, tackling. That they weren't getting taught before. That then encourages these kids to take an interest. Obviously, this is the local rugby league team, so they're going to come down. And it's the success of that really. It's nothing but hard work, and I've got to emphasise not by myself but by many other people, and it's paying off. The work they're doing really is superb.
And it helps when the kids come and the team wins.
Yes.
So obviously you're a well-known supporter. I'm going to have to ask you about the season so far. How have you enjoyed it?
Well, we're halfway through the season, top of the league, which if you'd have told me that at the start of the season with the likes of Dewsbury and Swinton kicking about, then I'd have taken it very much so, especially after the opening game of the season. To put things in perspective, we've just lost a game. It's the second game of the season we've lost. We've lost the first game of the season, and we've lost a game halfway through. I reckon that's pretty good going. You're never going to go the season without getting beat. To lose 2 games at the halfway point, we're going to be there or thereabouts at the end. I'd like to think we'd be there.
Everybody remembers last year, and it seems that we're almost mirroring exactly what we did last year. Are you confident knowing what happened last year?
Yeah, we've got the strength in depth this year that we didn't have. This season it's been a funny one because the general quality of the league has improved massively. I don't think we've got the best team in the league. I think Dewsbury got the best team in the league, possibly followed by Swinton. But I think we've got is the best squad. So, whereby they've got their first 13, 15 players maybe, the best 13, 15 players, we've got probably 20. So when those 2 or 3 of those 13 get injured, we can draft other people in. They can't. It showed with Swinton, they lost Wayne English to fullback, and the whole game went to pot for 3 games. He's now coming back, unfortunately, for us, so they're going to be coming strong again. But that's the way it happens. You know, teams get injuries. Fortunately, we've got the men to back the injuries up.
Well, Phil, keep up your good work with the youngsters, and let's hope, fingers crossed, to get promotion. Thanks for speaking to us.
Cheers, thanks, Phil.
So, with all this work going on to introduce kids to the sport of rugby league in the North Yorkshire area, there could be exciting times ahead for the York City Knights. Join us in part 2 for all the action from the home game against the Blackpool Panthers.
Prize goes there for the Knights. Sponsored by Seymour, number 14.
Statzone keeps you up to date with all the latest facts from the campaign so far, and we'll start with the results from round 6, 7, 8 and 9 of the NL2 season. In round 6, the Knights celebrated the success of the Family Fun Day with a narrow 17-16 victory over bogey side the Hunslet Hawks, in front of a bumper crowd of 3,224. A drop goal by captain Chris Levy 2 minutes from time saw the Knights through a tricky test, having been 14-0 down at one stage and 16-6 down at the break. Elsewhere, there were wins for Workington Town and Swinton Lions, while Dewsbury bounced back from being slaughtered by the Knights with a narrow victory at New River Stadium against the London Scholars. In round 7, the Knights swept aside the Blackpool Panthers as you've just seen. In other matches, Sheffield Eagles proved they are no mugs by pulling off a shock away win at the title-chasing Rams, and after the disappointment of late defeat in the previous round, the Hawks put themselves back on the map by denting Swinton's aspirations, turning them over 30 points to 20. And what about Dean Thomas's Gateshead Thunderside? A 15-14 win over Keighley Cougars in the game put back to June the 18th put them right into the picture for the end of season melee. And the success of Gateshead is the main headline in round 8, with a sparkling 57-32 away win in Greater Manchester against the fading Swinton Lions. Thunder ran in 10 tries for the first time since they reformed 5 years ago, with a hat-trick from Wade Liddell. There were also wins for Hunslet, Dewsbury and Sheffield, whose good form continue, and the Knights got 2 more points, this time in the capital, vanquishing the Scholars 32-14. Another fantastic turnout by the Knights supporters, who continue to travel en masse wherever the club plays. Round 9 was a disappointment for the Knights, as we have discussed in the programme, losing 44-28 to promotion rivals Workington. Around the other grounds, Dewsbury drew level with the Knights at the top of the league with a comfortable win over Blackpool Panthers, winning 32-8. Gateshead won again, this win making Dean Thomas the most successful coach in the history of the club only halfway through the season, and Hunslet and Swinton both claimed 2 points in their respective fixtures. So a look at the top half of the league table at exactly the halfway stage of the league season sees the Knights still top, but only on points difference from Dewsbury Rams. And the chasing pack are now only 2 points behind the leading 2, amongst them the Knights conquerors Workington. So the NL2 title race is wide open, and looking at the strength of the league this year, that should come as no surprise to followers of the game. At the bottom, Gateshead's 3 consecutive wins have dragged them up and away from the bottom, and they're now playing like playoff contenders, a massive improvement from previous years. Sheffield Eagles have also finally got into gear and have started picking up points. And while London and Blackpool prop up the division, it's a surprise to see Keighley with only 6 points from 9 matches, and their next game, the Knights away. Let's take a look at the table of leading try scorers, and Peter Fox is way out in front with 18 tries, only 3 short of Chris Langley's record of 21 tries in a season. Next is Dan Potter with 10, Neil Law with 8, and informed captain Chris Levy comes into the frame with 6. We move on now to advertise the calendar of forthcoming games, as we move into probably the most crucial period of the season, especially when last year's slump at this time is on the minds of Knights supporters. Next game is Keighley Cougars at home in what should be a win for the Knights, but for the Cougars this game is equally important, as another defeat will cut them further adrift of a playoff berth. As the Knights almost found out to their cost in a fixture in West Yorkshire earlier in the season, Keighley can play when they want to, and so do pose a threat. After that, on July the 10th is another very difficult game, the trip to Sedgley Park to face promotion rival Swinton Lions. This is a potential classic as Swinton look to do the league double over York. Let's hope the Knights can get the points there, but either way it's worth travelling across the Pennines for that one. After Swinton it's the Northern Rail Cup final weekend, so it's a 2-week break until the next fixture at home to Gateshead Thunder. The difficult games are coming thick and fast, and the Knights will have to answer some serious questions if they're to win these next 3 fixtures. Moving away from the community side of the club's work, we're now going to take a look at life in the boardroom and the views of the York City Knights chairman, Roger Dixon. Roger Dixon has been the chairman of the Knights since the inception of the club 3 years ago. His passion and drive in the dark days prior to the Knights being formed are fondly remembered, and Roger's ambitious approach has been a major factor in where the York City Knights are today. So Roger, thanks for your time today. Now, first of all, can I ask you what the view is from the boardroom about the season so far?
Well, one's got to be happy without being complacent. The most recent result was a bit of a disappointment, obviously, but I'd rather be disappointed at the top of the league than disappointed at the bottom. But you know well enough, Phil, we've been here before. Shall I say that if we're top at the end of the season, then we'll be happy.
Now, Roger, we have been here before, and we lost to Workington this time last year, and it led to a poor run of results. Now, the board have made the decision to bring in Mick Cook on a full-time basis. Obviously, Richard was part-time last season. So really, it's kind of the period to see whether that decision was the correct one.
Yes, proof of the pudding will be in the eating. It's a strange irony that we should be facing virtually a déjà vu situation. But Mick motivates the players. The players are very self-motivated. But it's just a demonstration that it's everybody's cup final, I think, when they play the Knights. And I don't want to sound in any way arrogant when I say that, but they're coming to us or welcoming us at their grounds, and they intend to put in a very good performance. And I think it's worth noting. You know, the defeat's a defeat, and it's disappointing, but the professional judgment about the Workington team performance was it's the best performance that team has put in for a fair while. And it's just a shame that that coincided with a game where our team underperformed, and that's a fact. They lost. But I'm sure they're determined to put that right.
So how is morale in the boardroom? Obviously we lost Steve Ferris early in the season, and that was a kind of sad occasion when he left, but have you obviously reorganised, and people obviously compliment the administrative structure of the club?
Well, we're still here. We're still enjoying it. And I think that's the key. There are times, I have to admit, when I find that as the whole concept, the whole experience develops, it becomes very absorbing. And personally, I occasionally find that somewhat overwhelming because of the sense of responsibility that I know everyone involved feels. You can't observe the reaction of the magnificent fan base we have. You can't, in my judgment anyway, see the faces of the children, see the faces of the families that come, and the older supporters returning after a period maybe in some cases of disillusionment with the game generally. You can't see that with my sort of approach and not feel hugely responsible and hoping all the time that they will derive from this the enjoyment and entertainment and friendship that they deserve. And so there are occasions when I personally can feel a little overwhelmed by it all, but I'd rather be overwhelmed by it all than it not be happening at all.
So you've been in the job as chairman now for 3 years, since the Knights began. Are you still enjoying it as much now as you did when you first started?
Yes, I'm enjoying it tremendously. But I say it's tempered. It's tempered with the fact that as the family grows bigger, any family that grows bigger occasionally has its stresses and its strains, and the family is maybe requiring even more of one's attention. And I don't want to be found wanting, and that because I regard myself just as a trustee, and I'm then responsible to deliver to the fans and the players and everybody associated, and our magnificent sponsors. All of those people have lent their name and their credibility to the organisation. You cannot let those people down, and the wonder of it is that the more that people are coming to the party, wanting to join in the experience, then sometimes in the middle of the night I wake up and I think, oops, because I know what I am, you see. I'm 9 stone 3 dripping wet. You wonder whether or not you're going to hack it. Well, there we go.
Tom speaking with top of the league, Roger, and hopefully will remain that way to the end of the season. This time next year, it's quite possible we could be challenging for promotion to Super League. Obviously, there's the issue of the future of the club, the chance of getting to Super League. There's 2 issues that need to be raised. First of all is about the plans for where we would play, because the stadium is not up to Super League standard. And also there's the issue of the Rugby Football League perhaps closing the door on clubs like the Knights for a couple of years to let teams consolidate their way in Super League. What's your view on that development, and are the board looking to the future?
If I take the second point first, I'll share with you my personal opinion. It's not either a board or a club viewpoint, but I've always believed that top of the class should go up in this sort of league based competition. It doesn't matter whether it's rugby or any competition. Top of the class should go up and bottom of the class should go down. I haven't had the time, in all honesty, to reflect quietly on what really is driving the much discussed proposals of a Super League. One can guess, and some of the guesses that I come up with disappoint me, because it breeds an air of cynicism, and it breeds an air of closed shop. I can understand the angle that maybe, well look, it is in nobody's interest that a club that perforce of winning its games but hasn't got the inherent infrastructure or funding or whatever else will just not be able to survive in Super League. So what is the point of taking a club into Super League only for it to have a miserable season, a miserable experience, maybe a bankrupting experience in every sense of the word, not just financial but in support, in motivation. It's not good for the game, and it's not good for the individuals concerned. I can hear that, but I don't actually endorse or subscribe to that, because we all live for that dream. I have never, as a fan, and that's basically what I still very much remain, but whilst I'm on sort of on the watch, as it were, for the club's ambitions, I have never ever wanted to think, well, perhaps we're better off, just missing out every season and not actually getting promoted. How unambitious, how unimaginative can that be? And almost a cheat, really. So, my personal view is that I do not think it is a helpful measure to guarantee people a safety net any more than to prescribe the limit and put a glass ceiling on their ambitions. As to the hopes, coming to your first question, as to the intentions of the Knights, so far as National League One is concerned, this ground would be permitted to play in National League One. I say that, which isn't a direct response to your specific question, but there is a bit of misinformation, certainly about the timing of the phasing in of these proposals, even for National League One grounds. But we would certainly, if we ended up winning this competition this year, then we would certainly be compliant with the 2006 and indeed 2007 regulations for National League One. Self-evidently, as the regulations stand, if we were to find ourselves in a position to be looking at Super League in the next year or two, then this ground would not be compliant, and in truth, in 2 or 3 years' time, there would be no acceptable alternative venue. I don't. It's just not practical. I mean, that's not rocket science in the vernacular. I mean, cherchez le ground, where is it? But we have assurances that no artificial obstacles would be put in our way to impede the development and promotion of the club and the game in this area. That a considerable amount, and I don't want to be gratuitously coy, but that a considerable amount of time and effort by me and others is being put in, not just to idly stand by and say, well, that's terrific, we've now got Super League, but oh, by the way, we've got no disrespect, we've only got the knaves and might to play it on. I can assure you that that is not going to happen. Because that's the sort of thing that nobody sees, but people are working on all the time.
Well, reassuring words, Roger, and thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for your interest in the club.
Thanks very much to Roger, and sadly that's all for this edition of our programme. There are some crucial games ahead which will decide the fate of the NL2 title, and with your support it could well be the Knights leading the pack down the finishing straight. Bye bye.